Hello, my beautiful guys and dolls, and welcome to an episode of Before the Curtain. I'm your host, Abbie Campbell, and we are here to discover the passion behind the performance. Artists of all backgrounds will share their stories about what it takes to create, survive, and thrive in the competitive world of entertainment. Finding inspiration in their journeys, we aim to bring you everything that happens before the curtain. Guys, we have an absolute icon in the room with us today, and I don't think this intro will do him justice, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Gymnast and percussionist turned dancer. He started his career performing with Donnie and Marie and toured the world with the Osmonds for many years. He continued to work as a tap soloist for stage shows, TV, and film. He's choreographed commercials for McDonald's, Aramis Cologne, and Autolite Auto Parts, as well as the Superstars of Gymnastics for USA TV Network and John Tesh Live at Red Rocks for PBS. He choreographed the World Gold Gymnast Tour with Nadia Comaneci and other Olympians and Hollywood dancers. He's performed and choreographed in multiple musical theater productions like The Newsies and West Side Story, to highlight a few. He is a master teacher, having been on staff in many high-caliber education programs like Tremaine Dance Convention and UNLV. And while he was at UNLV, he wrote a book called Invitation to Dance, which is still available on Amazon. Had to put in the plug. He has written for many publications and currently writes for Dance Informa magazine. He is currently on staff for Don Meralt's Theater Arts Preparatory School, Dance Teacher Web, and Millennium Dance Complex here in Las Vegas. He also is a contributor to outreach programs like Positively Arts and created an outreach project called Rhyth Kids, where he teaches students to combine fitness, music, and dance. He directs and choreographs for the Coppola Rhythm Ensemble and has created original shows like Kickin' It. He even had the honor to collaborate with Capezio to create his own tap shoe. Now, after all that, do I even need to explain why he's here with us today? So please help me welcome to the mic the virtuoso himself, Tony Coppola.
Congratulations on the intro, Abby. You did great.
Did I? Okay, yes.
And thank you for having me, and congratulations on your success with all these interviews.
Oh, thank you.
Fun stuff, yeah.
Okay, so, how did you find dance, or how did dance find you?
I don't know if it was an accident or fate, but I didn't come from zero. My family were like jitterbug social dancers and stuff like that. And of course, in the summers, I would go to powwows on the reservations and stuff and see dance there. So I already didn't have any aversion or stigma about dance and about men dancing. But it kind of happened by accident. I was in a band that was playing in a show here in Vegas. And I went to the music store one day just to buy drumsticks. And as I came out, I heard some tapping. And I opened the door and peeked in, and there were some people tap dancing. Now, I had seen it when I was a kid, but I didn't have any background in that. And I went over to the instructor, and I said, wow, I always thought tap dance was kind of neat stuff. And he said, have you ever done anything physical? I said, well, I had a nice career as a gymnast. And he said, if you'll teach my kids some tumbling, we'll teach you some tap dance. And that man was Maceo Anderson, rest in peace, who was part of a quartet called the Step Brothers. They were a flash tap act, very acro, high energy tap. And I started with him, and the rest I sprung boarded from there because eventually I went to LA and got training in other genres of dance.
So how long were you tapping before you were like, oh, I want to dance more?
I was still playing. Once I went to LA, I was singing and playing drums at night in a club to make a living. And I found a private tap teacher who was 180 degrees from what I had studied with Maceo, with all the acro. He did like beautiful close work and stuff like that. And it was real tap technique. And I was taking lessons. I approached it the way I had approached my percussion training. You take a lesson and you go and practice. I would take a private lesson from this guy, Ted Howard, rest in peace. And I would go rent studio time and practice and go back the next day and say, I got it. So I was taking a few private lessons a week, and he even gave me free privates along the way. He was a great guy. And I realized from my drumming and stuff that I could do a lot of stuff. In fact, he was a very giving teacher, because after 18 months, he said to me, you know everything I know, you need to go find another teacher. And it was kind of, a very giving thing. It was kind of discouraging because I would hear about another tap teacher and I'd book a lesson and I would go and I already tapped better than them. But
not to brag or anything.
Well, but two things. My drummer brain said there's more,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked terrible. I built like a gymnast. I looked like a gorilla when I tapped. And I knew that I needed dance training. So after that, of course, ballet and jazz, and the jazz teachers that I just did a story about, where I really got dance training. And of course, that took some years. But what happened as a tapper was I knew there would be more. And I got out all my percussion books from college. And I laid them down on the floor, and I said to myself, I need to do 4 counts with 10 different variations of tap steps before I go on to the next bar. So at that point, I was teaching myself.
Mm.
But when I would see people do something, I would try to learn everything I could from it.
Mm-hmm.
But the real journey at that point was filling in the blanks as a dancer, ballet, jazz, etc. So that's kind of how it got started, but it was a long journey after that, because that was a late start. When I started all this, I was 28 years old.
Started your dance career.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
And that's so funny because I feel like as young dancers, you know, when you're younger and you're either a competition dancer, you grow up dancing, and then you start, and then by, you know, your early 20s, if you're not booking the jobs you want to book or doing the things you want to do, you're just sitting there like, oh my gosh, I'm a failure. I can't believe I'm not doing it yet. And then to hear that somebody of your caliber and expertise and resume to not even start until they're 28 is very reassuring to young dancers, and also gives so much hope to anybody who's still thinking about pursuing it as well.
Yes. Because if you have that urge, that passion, whatever we call it, that you want to do it that bad, and you're willing to pay the price and be diligent about the training, you can. Now, of course, we know it's beneficial to have started as a kid and have all that background and stuff, but it can be done depending. I think there's a tie in there too. I asked some of my students, even now in the programs that I teach, did you play sports? Do you play an instrument? Because that formula that I use all the time, musician plus athlete plus artist equals dancer, musician is most important, and then there's athlete. And of course, on top of that, we hope you portray some artistry. But so I feel like I got a late start, but I didn't start from scratch because I had music and sports behind me.
Crossover.
Yeah.
The crossover. Because
Absolutely.
sometimes, and of course, I'm not as an experienced tap teacher as you are, but I've taught a lot of kids, and sometimes it's like, wow, you're such a great dancer. But you need to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and sometimes that like music inclination is either built into people. So it can definitely be trained 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But then in some people or some dancers, they just do not hear it that way. And that's so difficult to try to curate in them. Not impossible, but sometimes it's difficult. So it's very important to pull from the roots that you already have planted,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Use what you've got. But what you're talking about, that subject comes up a lot about counting, hearing rhythms correctly and stuff. In fact, one of the students asked me yesterday, because she's doing some teaching, how do you get them to understand counts that are pushed, things that fall on the ands? And sometimes, particularly with the younger ones, I'll have them sing the rhythm before they translate it to their feet.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes vocally give an accent that would then be accented in the feet. So like from the brain to the voice to the feet to the body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've done a lot where whenever I'm starting with like really young kids, I'll just have them sit there and clap.
Yeah.
You know, just clap.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'll be like, okay, we're going to double time. That means it's going to go 2 times faster. So
Yes.
what would that sound like? And then
Yeah.
like, you know, take it really slow. And that takes 20 minutes or 15 minutes. But like, that's so important.
The counting and the hearing of rhythms. That's why I know I'm a little bit biased, but the dancers with the best musicality are the ones who tap.
Period. I agree.
Quick pickup, hearing the counts that are pushed, quick weight changes, when to be light on your feet, when to be into the floor. Huge benefit musically.
Mm-hmm. Or have been like grew up playing instruments or know a few different instruments, some type of musical background.
Yes.
But anyway, before we digress too much, because we could probably go on that tangent forever.
Forever, yeah.
Was it difficult to find, because I know between gymnastics and dance, right? I feel like kind of like cheerleading and dance, there's a flow that dancers have that isn't inherently scene in gymnastics? Was it hard for you to find that?
Oh, I'll tell you when that became fun and difficult. I choreographed a lot of the big touring gymnastics shows, which was nice because there's no judging. We can just entertain. We can do what we want. But can I tell you, teaching the male gymnasts to dance, I wish I had a video to show you right now. And I watched our national gymnastics championships this last week. And it's so obvious who has dance background and who doesn't. And it's interesting for me coming from that sport. I mean, the difficulty is they do things we never dreamed of. But the fact that it's called artistic gymnastics, I always want more art, more artistic value in it. And you can see who has dance background. But yes, there's much more flow in dance than we see in certain events in gymnastics.
Was it hard for you to find that flow when you first started taking like jazz and ballet? And
yes and no. Of course, to really learn the jazz elements, I had to focus and do it. But my family were social dancers, like jitterbug and swing and all that. And family parties were just crazy. Everyone was just loose and just danced. Mm-hmm. So I just thought you just kind of went for it and you loosened up and you danced. So it might have been a little easier for me than it would have been for some people. But to really learn dance vocabulary and do the moves correctly, of course, I had to focus and work hard.
Do you think that was the hardest part about transitioning into more jazz and lyrical, was learning the vocabulary of it all?
I'll tell you what was the hardest part, if you have a good eye for things, was seeing how easy it was for tall people to get a nice, long, graceful line, and us short folks really have to work for those long lines. That's the tough part of it. I can stand next to a tall dancer, and they do this, and I better do this. So, because I saw the difference, and I wanted to get there.
Did you have anybody, a teacher or a mentor tell you that? Like, hey, since you're shorter, you're going to have to travel, you're going to have to travel more or, kick higher or something like that.
Traveling wasn't difficult because I was used to flying around. No one told me that, but I think they would say maybe to the entire class, stretch for everything your work, hang on the edges, don't change the edges and stuff like that. So, I got the message and I kept trying to translate it to me. I knew I didn't look as long and graceful as the taller dancers. So I had to work at it.
And at what point did choreography come into your life?
Well, when I was training as a dancer and I wasn't yet qualified to audition for dance jobs, I still realized I had something that they didn't have that came from sports and percussion and all that. And I always asked myself, what can I do that they can't do? And I started putting together what you would think of as a stage act very early on in the process. So actually, I was choreographing myself first. And then it kind of went from there. People would see me doing something and they'd ask, would you choreograph this? I think, and then when I got to the point that I was working as a dancer, like touring with Donnie Marie and stuff like that, seeing how the choreographers worked and learning from that, I felt I could do that eventually. I could try. But then when the gymnastics shows came along, it was great because they needed a choreographer that knew both dance and gymnastics. And that was me. So I had enough dance training at that point to teach dance to the gymnasts and to stage.
Did you, when you were first asked to choreograph, did you ever feel like, oh no, I can't do that, I don't know enough, or I don't have as much experience as even the people that are asking me?
I don't remember feeling that. I just kind of went for it.
Yeah.
And like everything else, you make mistakes and you do better. You say, oh, well, that was mediocre. What can I do to spiff it up next time? Yeah.
What originally brought you to LA?
When I graduated from college, I had a nice career as a gymnast, and my degree is in music. I just thought I was going to get in the music business, just singing and playing drums in bands, and get into studio work. Well, that studio work, music business, that was LA. So I went from Northern California, where I trained as a gymnast and musician, to LA, thinking I would just get studio work. And that's kind of an interesting story because I didn't get work right away, and I needed a job. I needed to make a living. So I think I told this in one of my stories that I have on Instagram. I needed a job. So I took the LA County exams to get a job. And I got hired as a probation officer at the Central Juvenile Hall in LA.
What do you mean by LA County exams?
Counties will put out list of jobs that are available that the county hires you to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you take a test.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a job as a probation officer in the Central Juvenile Facility, which was very much a learning experience because it was basically, things have changed and things are better now. At that time, it was basically a prison for kids. And I was in charge of a unit of 9 and 10-year-old kids. And I'll never forget, I'm going to try not to get emotional about this, having to lock them each in a cell every night, 9 and 10-year-old kids. And after I did that the first night, I came back to the office where the other officers were. And there was another guy who happened to graduate from the same college I did. And he could see that I was upset. And he said, I know you're upset about locking these kids in. He said, you think you locked them in. They think you locked danger out. And that was really a learning experience for me. I was only in that job for 6 months before I landed with a band.
But it sounds like an experience that really stuck with you.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think that experience has a lot to do with your contribution in outreach programs?
Yes, exactly. And we have some terrific outreach programs here in Vegas, Positively Arts that Polita Simpson does. And very, very important because there are kids that can't afford music lessons, dance class, soccer, gymnastics, whatever it is. And the outreach programs are very, very important. And they learn a lot about teamwork. They stay fit. There's all kinds of benefits from outreach stuff. I had a nice outreach program in Colorado when I was there. And that was the first one that we called the RITH Kids. And I've done it in several different locations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's very coordination oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's very special.
Mm.
That's very special.
And I love doing it because I know, and you probably can attest to this, sometimes people will ask some of my students what style of tap I teach. And they'll go like this, that it's kind of coordination oriented. Snaps and claps and yells and all that kind of stuff that break it up,
Mm-hmm.
that you have to have coordination for.
Mm-hmm. And okay, we're going to come back to this. But when did teaching come into play? Was it before or after starting choreography?
After. Yeah. I was out with an injury for a little while, and I played percussion for some of my teachers at the time, played drums for their classes, and I got a chance to see how they taught. And then I'm not sure when I was first asked to teach, but I think it was private tap first, and then I got asked to teach a tap class at the Dupre studio in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of went from there and teaching jazz as well.
Mm.
But at that time, I was training with 4 main jazz teachers that I just recently talked about on my Instagram. And I mean, I knew I had ground to make up because I was older. And I was just on it and on it and on it. And I made up a lot of ground in the first few years.
Wow. So from your experience what's the, not patrol officer, what's the term? Probation. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
There's I have a very long question in my head. Probation officer to kind of finding that soft spot for outreach programs. How long was it before you actually started teaching outreach programs?
I remember in LA, we would just ask to come in and teach a special class. And unfortunately, I don't necessarily remember the names of all those outreach programs, but I wasn't part of their faculty. Mm-hmm. They'd say, can you come in and do a such and such? Can you come in and do a little conditioning class, even for the kids' fitness stuff? Can you come in and teach some basic tap? And just and I gained confidence about teaching from there. Mm-hmm. And then I was willing to do some classes and build it.
Whoa, hang on. My brain gets excited sometimes. What was your first big teaching job? Because I know you've taught Tremaine, UNLV, all these big places. Which one was the first?
Well, I was teaching some private lessons, and there was a studio in LA. The older dancers are going to laugh at this when they hear this. It was called Morolanda Studio.
Mhm.
And there were pro people rehearsing there and teaching there, etc. Now, as I said, I was putting together an act for myself because I thought, well, what can I do that they can't do? So naturally it was percussion and tap, different kinds of coordination stuff. And I would rent this room, and there was class going on in the next room, packed with people. And this is back in the disco era. And I looked in, and there was this guy teaching, and that was Joe Tremaine. And his classes were packed. And every once in a while, people would take a water break, and he'd peek into where I was rehearsing and look at what I was doing and just laugh, and stuff. And he got a kick out of it. And time went by, and he used to be a guest on some of the dance conventions that were out there at the time. He was the special guest. They would bring our star from Hollywood, Joe Tremaine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after a while, he looked around and he went, well, what if I bring a whole faculty of stars from Hollywood?
Mm-hmm.
And literally, one day he came in, he said, I'm starting this convention, Do you want to teach tap for me? Because I had gotten good enough that he could see I knew what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. And the first few cities, I love telling this, Joe and I were a two-man convention. I remember we went to Florida. He taught jazz, I taught tap. And then it was shortly after that he started adding other teachers to round out what became the Tremaine faculty. And because he brought everyone from LA and they were considered master teachers or stars or whatever you want to call them, he got to the forefront, and he was the General Motors of the convention business for a while. I ended up staying with Joe for 12 years. Yeah. And the nice thing there too was whenever I wasn't teaching class, I'd play drums for the other people's classes. So it was a nice feature to have the drums on the conventions. And I was with him for 12 years, and it was good. And that's how I got to be known for people and got a little bit of a name. I owe Joe Tremaine the beginning of my career.
Wow. And I sit here thinking I grew up going to Tremaine, obviously
after I was
a
gone.
long time after you were gone. Well, definitely. I would probably say maybe closer to 10 years, probably after you were gone, because I was there for a while, and I remember them celebrating their 30th year.
Yeah.
And that's so cool for me to sit on this side of the conversation, because I grew up doing that. I was part of their assistance program see. I came in when it was so established, and it was such. It still is. At least I think. I don't know. I'm not in that space anymore. But it was such a massive name growing up.
Yes.
And to know that you were there for its inception it's so cool.
We had lots of fun, but I love telling stories about the way some things were then as opposed to now. Do you know? For a while, we didn't even have competition. It was just dance convention.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, when Joe added competition and stuff, the scoring, we didn't talk into microphones, and we looked at the piece and we wrote critiques and scores, manually. And that went on for a while until things changed and we started giving critiques and mics, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And we had lots of fun traveling together. Lots of fun people, really talented people that were on his faculty. And some of the people who were assistants, similar to what you did, that went on to be teachers, like Desiree.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Rest in peace.
Oh. What? I love hearing like those full circle moments, because Desiree started as an assistant. Oh, and then she
danced right next to me in the faculty show.
Oh, what a beautiful human. Yeah. I think I only got to take maybe 1 or 2 classes from her, but I just remember she just held so much incredible space whenever she walked into a room.
She was special.
Oh. And I've only ever seen a glimpse of Joe Tremaine's personality. Just in little moments, he would come backstage before the faculty show, and you'd hear him at a little rehearsal. And he is such a hoot.
Hysterical.
from just the little comments or little sentences he would say in passing or before he would walk on stage. And I would just sit there and laugh. And I don't think he would ever know my name because by the time I was part of it, Tremaine had like 150 assistants.
Yeah.
But just knowing and remembering his personality and then knowing you, I can only imagine. I can only imagine the tomfoolery
we had so much fun traveling together, airports and airplanes and all that stuff. And a few of phrases from different teachers over there stick with me. And I know I pass them on to my students. But he was so funny. If he didn't want something to be a certain way, he'd just say, he'd say, that cannot be. It cannot be. But the funniest one, if he wanted to say something didn't matter, he'd say, it don't make me no never mind.
Oh, that's where you get that saying. Oh my God, I love that.
Well, he was from Louisiana, and I'm sure some of that came from that culture.
Oh my God, what a hoot. This is Tremaine's, his quote. And I still tell it to everybody who I ever talk to about dancers being amazing people. Dance training is life training. And not that I ever heard him say it, but, seeing it on all Tremaine's marketing and part of their slogan and them using that quote a lot, I will forever use that quote.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever be able to tell him thank you for that quote, but I will never not use that quote. Dance training is life training.
Well, as you know, that's part of our job, even now with the TAPS program, Theater Arts Prep here in Vegas. It's as much mentoring as it is teaching dance. And that's an important part of it because that does relate to life. And lessons you learn in dance hopefully translate in a positive way to life and the other way around. Things you learn in life, you go, oh, I better apply that to dance.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I had to ask about Tremaine because it definitely holds a special place in my heart. And to anybody listening who went to Tremaine conventions, I bet that's...
Well, even now, like when I taught on Dance Teacher Web or different things, people who've been around for a long time, they still associate me with Joe. Mm-hmm. And here's the funny part of that story. He was not one of my jazz teachers. I never took a jazz class from Joe.
What?
Isn't that funny?
That is so
just
funny.
Just the way it worked out.
Did he ever take one of your tap classes?
He did tap a little. And we used some tap and faculty show. Mm-hmm. And Joe and Marcia and everybody tapped. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So did you help? When did random question, but I'm just curious now. When did the assistance program start? Like, were you there for any of that?
Okay. That was after I was gone.
Okay.
I was with Joe. Did we start in 1981 or something? Till 94, 95, somewhere in there. And then my wife at the time and I had a tap act and we left to do stuff. So that happened after I was gone from there. Yeah. Okay. But no, my four main jazz teachers were Roland Dupre, who was still teaching a little bit at the time, even though he was running the studio. Hama, who was from Luigi's company and still teaches and has a studio in L.A. A guy named Joe Bennett, who was pure jazz and used a lot of Brazilian stuff, very smooth dancer. And my main teacher, who I owe, I think, the way I move and dance to, was Jaime Rogers, same size as me. If you see the original West Side Story movie, there's a little fight on the playground. He's a little Puerto Rican guy. And I was with him for years. We were both explosive dancers, and we were the same size. All I had to do was copy him to become a good dancer. And classes were grueling. Classes were 2 hours. Warm-up was 45 minutes. Very power stuff. He had been in Martha Graham's company. He'd worked with Jerome Robbins. I mean, he had an incredible background. So, and of course, being Puerto Rican, we did some Latin stuff and lyrical. So we really had, you never knew what style when you came in, but you knew that warm-up was really going to work you. We worked hard. And I think people who take jazz from me now see a little bit of Graham even in my warm-up and some of the contraction stuff and the power stuff came from there.
Love it. Oh, love an athletic warm-up. So when did choreographing for commercials and TV come into your life?
I was teaching at Dupre, and I can't remember at the time, like now we have Vegas auditions and all these different sites. At the time we had Daily Variety and The Hollywood Reporter. And that's where we saw auditions and stuff. Now, I can't remember if I saw something in there, but they were looking for a choreographer for a commercial. And the first one was a McDonald's commercial.
Mm.
And that ended up being one of my accounts. I choreographed a lot for McDonald's, particularly when it was kids involved. And I can't remember exactly what year that was.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I started choreographing commercials, and I worked with the production company. So when other things would come up, they'd go, oh, we worked with Tony. Everything turned out well. Let's call him again for this product.
Mhm.
So I worked with, did different products, McDonald's and cologne and video stuff and on and on and on. And some of the McDonald's commercials, lots of neat stories came out of that stuff.
Any you want to share?
A day that I will never forget, there was a guy who played Ronald McDonald. That's what he did for a living. He had done 1,000 commercials. Can you imagine the checks that were in his mailbox every day?
Whew.
And, with the big shoes and the whole costume and everything. And it's very expensive shooting these commercials. And one day we finished early, and they shoot these at a McDonald's store.
Mhm.
It's a functioning McDonald's. And so the grill was still hot and all this stuff. And this guy that played Ronald McDonald, I said, hey, let's try something. I said, why don't you go get some wet towels? We'll tie them on your feet. Jump up on the grill with your feet and make a rhythm on the grill. And he thought that was hysterical. Da, 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 da. And the director started laughing. Director I'd worked with before said, that's great. And about 3 seconds later, this lady came running down. She was from McDonald's. There to, I assume everything was kosher, right? She said, you cannot do that. Some kid will put towels on their feet and jump up on their stove at home. And that was an expensive lesson that day. You're almost a role model wherever you go and whatever you do.
Mm-hmm.
And Ronald would have been a role model, and kids would have tried to jump up and dance on the stove.
Ooh.
So she nixed it right there. Yeah. Interesting lesson.
Yeah. I mean, it sounded like the director was on board, though.
Oh, he thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that idea.
Yeah.
What a beautiful idea. But yeah, especially when you are in such a point of influence, like McDonald's commercial.
You're in a position of authority. I mean, people look to you for answers.
Right.
Yeah. But the commercials were fun. I loved doing them. And, the people that are in the commercials, of course, they make residuals every time it's shown and stuff like that. But as a director or choreographer or whomever, you have a day rate.
Mm-hmm.
The good thing there is as time went along, my day rate went up and it was pretty good money.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed it. And some of the products were fun. We did one for Autolite spark plugs.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did was they built an engine on the set, and it was a 6-cylinder car. So there were 6 turrets there. And I knew this was going to be a good national commercial. And I thought, oh, this is so cool. 6 dancers are going to get this job and make all this money and stuff like that. And we started auditioning and stuff like that. And I ended up with 2 dancers and 4 actors. Because with all due respect to us dancer folks, sometimes we tend to be control freaks. And the actors were willing to be foolish. And that's one of the greatest things you can learn, a willingness to be foolish.
Mm.
And so we did these commercials, and they all made a lot of money, but it was 4 actors and 2 dancers.
Mm. So what other fun learning lessons did you learn along your commercial journey?
Well, all of us in dance understand that you have to deal with rejection. There's a lot of it. In fact, percentage-wise, I love thinking about this all the time. If you audition and you get 1 out of 10, you're successful. Now, we know a lot of people here that have yourself included, have a better batting average than that. But you have to deal with the rejection and not view it as rejection to let it get to you and stuff. You had a free class. Look at it that way. Whatever you learned. And sometimes it's, what am I right for? What am I not right for? We'll never forget this story. Barry Manilow, who still plays here in Vegas, had an audition. He was looking for male dancers. And Barry's well over 6 feet, I think, at least 6 feet. they didn't specify height. And I went to the audition, and the choreographer, I happened to know because he had also directed videos for Tremaine when we did our videos. So they give a combination, and we're all dancing and dancing and dancing, and I'm looking around, and they're cutting and they're eliminating people, and we get down there, and I'm looking around, and it's all tall guys and me. And choreographer Kevin brought me up to the table. He said, Tony, we can't use you on this commercial. And I'm thinking, why didn't they specify height, right?
Right. Or why didn't you tell me earlier?
Yeah. He said, you're not right. We can't. And I said, I know, Kevin, what am I doing here? And he said, we have truly loved watching you dance this afternoon. Mm-hmm. And that meant the world to me. That kind of a compliment from a choreographer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
So I almost didn't care that I didn't get the job. I went out of there feeling real high. Take those moments, grab onto them. Yeah. And that's why I think as a teacher and a choreographer, I maybe too heavy, maybe too generous with compliments. But they're always accurate and sincere. A dancer that I did something with about a year and a half ago, I just had to text her the other day and say, is it okay if you're one of my favorite dancers? Because I went back and looked at the video that we did, and she's truly one of my favorite dancers. And I think we need to support each other that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
No.
Well, because we do deal with rejection and judgment on ourselves, and
we're hard on ourselves.
Yeah. We feel it all the time. And I think if there's ever a moment to compliment a dancer, or to tell them they stood out, or to tell them they're amazing, or just to, give them any type of reassurance, I think is a very important moment to grasp and hang on to.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I don't think it's ever too generous or too much to do, because I think we all need that. And you never know how it'll change their day or change their outlook on whatever it is they're going through, and they may just need that. In that moment, they need to hear that.
And good to know that teachers and choreographers love the compliments too when we get them.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's just, that was a nice class, or I loved class, or gee, I loved the combo, or whatever it was. Yeah, that's, we feed on that as well.
Absolutely. And not only to just sit here and be able to do the podcast and have teachers and choreographers here, and for me to tell them that and to hear their reactions, but to also experience it after class or in a project or a gig where I'm like, oh my, like this routine or this number, this production is just so fun to do. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And they're like, really? Or they're like, oh, thank you so much. I'm like, do you guys not know how good you are? Like, you're in that position. You're the one telling me what to do.
You got there for a reason.
Yeah, you got there for a reason. What do you mean you don't know that? Or like,
yeah,
you love hearing it. How can you not know that? But then it's also... it's the same thing back to it. There's dancers, or us as dancers don't realize how good we are, or realize the effect we have on the people watching us, where we're like, oh, thank you for the compliment. I'm not feeling that, but thanks. And it's like, no, how...
yeah, it's important.
You dance in front of a mirror? Take a look.
One of the things that when I did my Instagram a few days ago, I talk about these 4 jazz teachers that I studied with. My main teacher, Jaime Rogers, we talked about phrases that stick with you. The phrase from Jaime that sticks with me all the time is, the most dangerous thing you can be is comfortable. Now that relates to what we're talking about, because I see the dancers who just go to dance class, some who after they have a gig don't go to dance class, but you see the ones who continue to train on the outside and plan on a long career. They're not content to just be comfortable with the gig or with the same class all the time. They continue to train. And I really want to get that message out there. I'm a big advocate of versatility and training and continuing on, because if you do it right, you can still dance when you're ancient, like some of us, if you continue to train. Now, I'm fortunate that I love training. I love the gym. I love everything about that. But if there was a message I wanted to get out there to the dancers, be versatile, continue to train. You can dance forever if you do it right. So that's one of my points of focus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the versatility in your upbringing led you to the versatility in your career, because you've choreographed for so many different things, like commercials, stage productions,
Yes.
gymnastics.
Yes.
That's amazing. And then you've also created your own like shows as, the Coppola Ensemble.
Yeah.
When did you first create a show?
I had just come to Vegas. I had been running a college dance department in Colorado, which was kind of a little break from professional career, from just performing, choreographing, and teaching. I used to run summer dance camps in Colorado, and one thing led to another. And I took a job in a college and ran a dance department there. And when I first got here, I was teaching part-time at UNLV. And a few people came and I thought, oh, they're good. They could do some of my choreo. Let's put something together. And so I started with a rhythm ensemble, tap, percussion, etc. And I've had several incarnations of that. And that just kind of built. Right now, I don't have a set ensemble together, but as things happen, I kind of plug people in and out who I know can learn quickly, like the Abbie Campbells of the world.
Oh.
I know you're a quick pickup.
Thank you.
And being a quick pickup is valuable. Yeah. Yeah.
Here I am talking about people getting compliments, and I'm like, oh, me? No, not me.
And the fact that you tap is part of the reason you're a quick pickup.
Mm.
The musicality, the rhythms, the quick weight changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that you mentioned earlier in this podcast, that you were always thinking, what can I do that other people can't do? And not that this podcast is about me, but my mom instilled that in me very young when she looked at the studio that I was at and was like, no one taps. Abbie, you're going to tap, and forced me to do a tap solo. I never took really much tap class. My mom was just like, hey, you're doing a tap solo this year. Oh, and you're doing it in heels.
Crash course?
Yep, and you're doing it in heels. My first tap solo was in heels. I was like 9, 10 years old.
Oh,
she was like, here you go.
No,
like, oh, thanks.
Don't do that to that kid.
I did it.
Yeah.
I did it. It was great. It's called Red High Heels. So, I loved that. And then being able to do it, I kept at it all through my training. And then to come to, taps and learn from you. And I loved learning from a drummer.
Yeah, we do think differently.
Yeah.
I know.
And then, but it's also taught me so much about music.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any of the correct terms, but has taught me a lot about that.
I'm glad you said that, because I do think that more dancers, especially teachers and choreographers, should know more about music. Even sometimes to hear a choreographer count a phrase where they whether it's in the music or not, they want to push the count, but they don't count it correctly. Mm-hmm. Now, the dancers end up getting it anyway, because dancers are mimics. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. But I always wish that they had more musical background benefit. I really feel an advantage having music degree and music knowledge and percussion and stuff is an advantage. So
can you teach us how to count it correctly? Because I probably don't count it correctly.
It depends on what it is. Yes, we can. I mean, it depends on the phrase we're doing. Okay. The one I hear a lot is counted or pushed. If I want to go da, 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 I hear choreographers go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not 4. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4 in parentheses. What's happening next? Mm-hmm. You see? Mm-hmm. And particularly when you get into tap stuff, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and. Mm-hmm. Now, everybody learns differently, and I ask my students, some of them want the counts. Some of them would prefer you say the name of the step while you're doing it. Mm-hmm. Shuffle, step, heel, dig, whatever it is. Some of them are fine with you scatting the rhythm, mm-hmm. And they get it. Mm-hmm. Everybody learns differently, but we got to arrive at the same place. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've been finding myself giving, because I, still teach kids, giving them choreography counts, the rhythm of it, so scatting it, and also lyrics, because some kids are just like, just give me the lyrics. Okay. So, totally understood. Yeah. Important stuff. 1, 2, 3, and. Got it. Thank you, Tony. Well, that's one example in millions of phrases. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So when was it hard to put together a show like Kickin' It? It took some time, but the toughest thing putting anything together is people's schedules. getting everybody together.
Heard.
Yeah, Kicking It was a rhythm-based show, but we had other ingredients. I call her my stepdaughter, Sandra, came out and did a whole Latin thing that I played congas and stuff, so it was percussion and Latin that she did. We broke it up a little bit. We had some that was pure percussion, some that was a straight ahead tap, some that used some rhythms that my dad and I have invented together, the Radamakus, that some of my students have worked with. When you say, was it hard to put together? Once we had people together, we always got on a really good roll. The toughest thing in anything, and you and I were talking about this earlier today, is keeping things together because there's always a financial aspect. People have to work, they have to make a living. Getting booked, getting gigs and stuff like that may end up being the toughest part of it. And particularly, I admire people who are doing company work because that's even harder than getting a gig or a contract in a running show. And so you really have to be dedicated and have the passion to do it, to stay together and grind it out because there's a financial side of it. You got to make a living.
And do you think this, I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you think your percussion education has helped you become a different kind of tapper?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a little bit of a bone of contention. Tap, if we look at tap 100 years ago to now, we stand on their shoulders, okay? But we do steps that people way back when never even dreamed of. And part of my emphasis, how can we use it differently instead of recycling people's expectation of tap? Now, there's nothing wrong with that. If people are entertained by whatever era or whatever style, bravo. We're here to entertain you and, make you forget about the trials and tribulations of your life while you're watching the show. But for me, I want to take it further forward instead of recycling same old style. And I think having a percussion background lets me hear it a little differently. This came up the other day. A phrase came up and I said, and my student said, but how do you count that? And it did this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 sounds, that take up 2 counts. That's called a drag triplet.
I'm pretty sure I was the one that asked you that. I'm pretty sure that was me, Tony. When we were choreographing for Dance Teacher Web.
You had to dance a drag triplet on Dance Teacher Web.
Yeah.
So that one's better scattered, don't you think? 1, 2, 3, 2.
Uh-huh.
Bass drum, boom, boom. This interview isn't fair, Abbie. We know each other too well.
It's great though, because I also know things that weren't in the bio that I can ask about.
Yeah.
That's funny. So I do want to ask, when did you get partnered with Capezio? How did that come to fruition?
Oh, that is an interesting story, I think. Yeah. I hope. The one teacher I studied with who did beautiful close work, he was very, very light. He wore tap shoes that had a tap on the front, and in the heel, there was a hole that was bored out, and it was a washer, like a screw in a washer, that was recessed into the heel, so that those heel sounds were very light. Mm-hmm. He didn't like the heavy heel sound. Well, I had a pair like that for a while, but I look at a tap shoe as a set of drums, snare drum, tom-tom, bigger tom-tom, bass drum, accent. Mm-hmm. And I wanted the heavy heel. So what I did, at the time, I would buy a jazz shoe. I found a cobbler in L.A. who would build it into a tap shoe, but they were a jazz shoe, so you could still point. Mm-hmm. This was before they had split sole. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they worked out great for me. And when I was teaching on Tremaine Conventions... So
you single-handedly invented the split sole tap shoe?
No, I can't take credit for that. No. I would go on a convention teaching with Tremaine, and people would say, where'd you get those? And I'd say, well, I have a guy that makes them for me. And they said, oh, well, could I pay to have him make me a pair? And this happened a few times. So then I went to a wedding in Phoenix, and there we are at the reception having cake and stuff. And this guy comes over to me, and he owned the Capezio store in Scottsdale, outside of Phoenix. And he said, "What kind of tap shoes do you wear?" And I said, "Well, I have this cobbler, and he does this and this and this." And he said, "Well, I'm a cobbler." He said, "I know how to do that." And bingo, people had been asking on the conventions. And I said, "Do you think you could make these in quantity?" And he said, "I'll give it a try." So now he's making them in his garage at night. And he'd give me 4 or 5 pair, and I would go place them. By that time, Marcia had her clothing line. She had a booth at the convention, and I'd say, "Can I place the tap shoes and see if they sell, and I'll give you a cut."
Yeah.
And we'd sell out. So I went back to Barry, the cobbler from Scottsdale, who was making them, and I said, I can't keep up." He said, "We can't do this." He said, "I'm in the garage every night. My wife's angry with me that I'm just in the garage all night making shoes." So he said, "We have to go to Capezio."
Mm.
And I said, because he had Capezio franchise. So he had a long-running relationship with them.
Okay. So at the time, Capezio was already big.
Oh,
right?
Capezio had been big for a long time.
Yeah.
And originally there was, now in Italian that's pronounced Capezio. And there was a man, Salvatore Capezio, in the beginning. But it had changed hands to the Terlizzi family and now the Giacoio family as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it had been around a long time. And he had the franchise, so he had a relationship with them.
Yeah.
So we got on a plane, we went to New Jersey, and we sat around a table with, I tease Barry all the time, he was the only non-Italian at the table, and it did not hurt that I had an Italian name.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at my name, Coppola, and Capezio, they're both 7-letter Italian names starting with a C. And we did a lot of stuff with design based on that.
Mm-hmm.
And we had this meeting and everything, and we showed him the shoes that he was making, and we showed him the student model shoes that they were selling at the time. And I will never forget this moment, because we brought out the shoe that they had, and the heel tap wasn't even didn't look like a real heel tap. It was kind of a plate.
Okay.
And I said to Nick Terlizzi, I said, "Well, yours looks like a toy tap shoe." And Barry told me later, we got on the plane to go back to Arizona. He said, "I couldn't believe you said that." He said, "I thought we were going in the river in cement shoes."
Not the Italians.
And they looked at the shoe for a while. And Nick said, he said, I don't know if he said his dad or someone used to make them in a similar way. So he looked at the shoe for another few seconds. He looked at us and he said, "Okay, let's do it." And that's when we started. They would make a prototype of a shoe. They'd send it to me in LA. If I liked it, I'd have to initial it or say, "Change this," send it back to New Jersey. It went back and forth till we got a student model shoe.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look at that shoe, that was the end of 1990.
I'm going to pull it up. Mm-hmm.
It was the end of 1990. If you look at that shoe and you look at what's around now, the shoes that are around now are better than my shoe was back in 1990. But at that point, it was a better student model shoe than what had been around.
Mm-hmm.
And they came in black and tan. I have a pristine pair of tan in my bookcase in my living room just for sentimental value.
Oh, absolutely.
And we planned that maybe this shoe would run for like 4 years. And it ran for 14 years. And so Barry and I made royalties on the shoes. And all they ever asked me to do was go make autograph appearances, go to a Capezio store, jump around, do a few tap steps and sign some autographs and help sell some shoes. So that was a long time ago. We stopped making them in 2004.
Wow.
Yeah. There's still a few pair around.
There's a ton. Because I looked it up. So there's a ton on eBay is coming up.
Yep.
What else is coming up? Poshmark, Barry's Dancewear, featuring the Coppola tap issue.
Barry was the cobbler who made them.
Uh-huh.
Well, a girl came into my class. She was from Texas. And this happens to me a lot. She's in her 30s and she had taken from me when she was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Happens to me a lot. They'll come up and they'll say, "Oh, I took from you when I was 8 years old. Now they're 33, dragging 3 kids, And she came into class and we went to go across the floor and I looked and I said, those look like a pair. And they were a pair of mine that she had since she was a kid.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I remember coming to TAPS in 2018, and my dance teacher, the one that I credit everything for, she was like, "Oh, who are your teachers?" So I started naming, and then when I named you, she was like, "You get to take from Tony Coppola?"
Oh, that's
and
sweet.
I was like, "Yeah, he's our tap teacher." She was like, "Wow." She was like, "I remember I took his class at Tremaine," and she's like, "I think I even still have a pair of his shoes. Like, you're in for, that's an honor." And I was like, "Okay."
That's very sweet.
And
Thank
so I
you.
like looked you up. I was like, "What is she talking about?"
So that's how the shoe came about. And it ran longer than we thought. So it was good. It was free money.
We love that. We love residual checks.
There's nothing wrong with getting involved with. And in fact, on that score, I wish I'd been a better businessman along my career. I just had too much artist mentality and entertainer mentality, performer, artist, all that stuff. It's wise to know that your career is a business. That's one of the nice things that Don Marie does in the TAPS program is you guys understand that your career is a business and you get mentored about that.
Yeah, he's one of the next people I want on the podcast.
Yes.
I know he's about to start
Good
the
idea.
season with the new class. So
we're going into year 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every year I just feel older and older and older.
Oh, well, yeah. But when you get to this age and this stage, oh my God, I've got a birthday coming in a few weeks. Another year. The good news is you're still alive. You go, okay, I'm still here. Well, which that slogan, "We are still here." That slogan from the Native American community. We are still here, so I am still here.
It's good to know you appreciate the small things in life, Tony.
Right.
Okay, so with all this laughter, I have to ask what your funniest story is
Yes,
as a performer.
I knew you would. Okay, so I was with the Osmonds, with Donnie and Marie, as one of their dancers, and we toured all over. We did all over the UK and Asia, and I think we were, the last stop on our Asian tour was Tokyo. Okay, now I have to explain the choreographer. We had 4 male dancers, 4 female dancers, and then Donnie and Marie. And the choreographer did a really nice thing for the bows. We would form like an arc, okay? And each dancer got to come out and take an 8. It was very, very nice, yeah? Take an 8 and take a bow. Now, the male dancers, there was another guy short like me and 2 tall guys. And that was intentional because we had a lot of interplay with Marie. We framed Marie. 2 short guys, 2 tall guys. In fact, we used to laugh about this. The tall guys, if we laid her out in a lift or something, the tall guys got her ankles and her wrists, and the short guys were in the middle. So I used to say my job description is carrying Maria Osmond's rear end around the stage. And by the way, love Donnie and Marie. Total pros, great to work with, soft spot for them. Total pros. So each dancer comes out. Now, he staged it so that I would end up at one end. A tall dancer would end up at this end. I would run towards him. He would pitch me in a layout. Donnie would walk under and start to sing the end of the song.
Oh, amazing.
Okay? That's a nice thing, right?
Yeah.
Now, it was timed so that as he pitched me, like an explosive effect would go off.
Okay.
Pyro guy would shoot some stuff off. Okay. Last night of the tour, we're in Tokyo. Now, with all due respect to the tech people, some of these pyro guys are crazy. And whatever that is, gunpowder and stuff or whatever else goes in there, he kept putting a little more and a little more and a little more. Okay? So now
I'm so scared of where this is going. Last
night of the tour, before we just come back to the States, and pitches me, the explosion goes off, the impact. The kids said they could feel the impact. I went up in the air. The impact blew me off. They said I almost looked like a helicopter. I landed in a heap down this way.
Like in a fetal position?
Yes. And Donnie, being the pro he is, stepped over me and sang the end of the song. I don't know what the moral of that story is, and you can imagine the choice words I had for the pyro guy after the show. He is still alive, by the way. So Donnie normally would walk under me as I was pitched. So there I was in a heap, and he stepped over me to sing the end of the song.
Did you get hurt at all? No, you didn't get hurt?
It dazed me a little bit.
Oh, I bet.
Well, the kids said that and Donnie must have felt the same thing before he stepped. And I can't remember where Marie was at that point. But they were great to work with, and I loved doing that tour.
Oh, first off, you poor thing. Second, Donnie said, deal with it later. This is right over you.
He said the show must go on.
Yeah.
And he'd grown up in the business, So, yeah. But on that score, both in the sports world and the entertainment world, I feel so blessed to have worked with these people, not just because they're famous. I admire them because they're good at what they do.
Oh, yeah.
If they're truly good, not just because they're a star. I had a week I will never forget. Nadia Comaneci had just come to this country after quite a journey to get out of Romania and stuff. And James Earl Jones, you know who that is?
Mm-hmm.
Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
I was shooting a commercial on the Queen Mary in Los Angeles with James Earl Jones and 50 dancers while I had a TV special in Reno, The Mystery and Magic of Nadia, built around her at the same time. And I'm flying back and forth. I had an assistant in each place. And I'm flying back and forth to do. And so both of these people were stars in their world. I'm never starstruck because someone's famous, but I admire them to death if they're good at what they do. Mm-hmm. And these people were both consummate at what they did. Mm. And so I felt very honored. And along the way, I've had a chance to work with so many people you would consider famous, but I'm blessed because they were good at what they do, and they were professional, and they were dedicated. Mm-hmm. And a big plus, they were nice people.
Mm-hmm. Legends don't exist because people know them. Legends exist because their work outlives them.
Amen to that. That's a great quote.
Mm-hmm. And that to me makes the coolest stories. And those people who are legends like that are usually, I haven't met all of them, but are typically very humble people who are we're here for the work. We're not here for, let's post on Instagram, let's post on socials. That's not who they are. They probably didn't take a picture today, and they wouldn't even think about it because they're probably answering texts or calls. They're so focused on their gig. They were either choreographing or they were meeting or they were so involved in what they do because they care so much about it. And
reputation is everything, as you know. Even at the level of when you're first starting out, reputation's everything. Mm-hmm. And at a certain point, it's a pyramid. You get to the top, everybody knows everybody. Mm-hmm. Reputation is way important. So I feel really blessed to have worked with those people, to have had as much career as I have had. Mm-hmm. But I don't think any of those are the best moments. Mm-hmm. I think the best moments are in the future.
Mm-hmm. Now, in more of the start of your career, even dance career, did you make any mistakes that you were like, oh no, I might not come back from this in the professional world?
No, I always made sure that I wasn't difficult to work with.
Okay.
Sometimes when you talk about little incidents, sometimes people in class, when I was dancing in class with people, would be irritating, or they wouldn't hold their space and stuff like that. And it wasn't but I've seen people get into major fights about stuff like that. So I always avoided that because that's part of your reputation too.
Right.
Do you enjoy taking class with this person? Yeah. And major mistakes, I don't think so.
Okay. Just curious.
Now, I think even over the last few years, different things. I've several things I go, oh, I wish I had done all that differently. But you learn from it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And hopefully you don't burn bridges. Not everyone's going to like working with you. It's styles.
Mm-hmm.
and the situation
Mm-hmm.
and the parameters, what you're allowed to do, what you were asked to do. So it's not all perfect and it's not all going to go smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think any of it's been major mistakes.
Okay.
Maybe over the last few years, there's been things I would have done differently.
Mm-hmm. Has there ever been a point in your career that you looked at the entertainment industry and said, I don't think I can do this anymore because it was such a stressful or pressure-filled time for you?
Well, I never say I don't think I could do this anymore. There's too much of it that I love.
Mm-hmm.
But what you have to understand is, particularly at the dance end of it, it's a business of young, good-looking people. So as you get older, even if you're, I feel like my body's still flying around, but as you get older and look older, certain doors close to you because it's a business of aesthetics.
Mm-hmm.
So having to adjust to that and saying, well, then where do I put my effort? What's my smartest thing to do?
Mm-hmm.
Because however that affects me doesn't affect my ability to pass it along to others, to help their careers, to mentor and teach. You still have that much to give. Sometimes you wish you could do more for yourself with it because doors close as you get older just because of the way you look.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that.
Yeah. And if you could pick one standout moment throughout your career to look at and say, this was a highlight for me, what would that be?
I'll have to preface it with a paragraph.
Okay.
In fact, this is one of my stories on Instagram. When I was 14 years old, a freshman in high school, I was an inch shorter than this, God forbid, and only weighed 98 pounds. And we used to have required PE, and you do a week of soccer, a week of baseball, a week of basketball, and we had a week of gymnastics. And after the class, the coach came up to me and he said, wow, you should go out for gymnastics team. You could really do this. Now, here I am at 98 pounds. And I said to him, I'm not doing that sissy stuff. I'm going out for football. And he looked at me and he said, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I'm going out for football.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought for a minute and he said, I'll tell you what. He said, I'll make you a deal. You go out and practice with the gymnastics team for a week. If you don't like it, I'll let you come out for football. Went out for the gymnastics team, fell in love with it, had a career as a gymnast. Now, you can see where eventually that pivots to dance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so years go by. Now, that coach went from coaching high school to junior college to the pros, to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you his name. His name was Dick Vermeil. Football fans will know that name. When the Rams were in St. Louis, the year 2000, he won the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
That coach.
Wow.
That had gotten me into this. Now, but here's the highlight. He won a Super Bowl. A week after that, was working on my rhythm act stuff. I performed in Long Beach, California. Yeah. And it was the first time as a solo act, I got a standing ovation. And rather than be so thrilled that I got a standing ovation, all I could think was, thank you, coach.
Mm.
That's the highlight of my life.
Oh, I could cheer up. I love that. He
saw something in me that I wasn't aware of. And that's at Dance Teacher Web, we did a little end note speech. And I said, be open to what others see in you. They might see something that you don't even see, that you can run with and be successful at and learn to love. Imagine if he hadn't said that and I never became a gymnast or a dancer.
Mm.
Well, it might have been okay as just a drummer, but I think this has been richer.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I'm just soaking in that because I'm like, I'm getting teary-eyed at the moment. Because how...
I owe him, yeah, everything.
Mm.
He's retired now and he's in the Football Hall of Fame. Yeah. But you see how you affect people's lives. Mm-hmm. Just a comment or something you see.
Mm-hmm. And that, it does and it doesn't ties back to what we mentioned earlier. If you see someone or know someone and you, have it on your heart to tell them.
Yes.
That they're really great at this or they need to keep doing this or hey, have you ever thought about this? That goes so much deeper than just giving them a compliment or just giving them a, I don't want to say guidance, but just whether it's your opinion or like, hey, have you ever thought about this? Just giving your thoughts to someone goes so much deeper than you probably ever know.
You can spark something that really turns into something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Can make a beautiful impact on the world, because I can only imagine the stories that people also have about working with you being great and fabulous and, all of that. Because from that, what do they call it? Is it the butterfly effect, right? From one beautiful moment like that turned you into this amazing teacher, choreographer, icon in the dance world, and how you've impacted thousands and thousands of people from there, teaching and everything you've done. I can only imagine.
I think now about the people I trained, even going all the way back to LA, that are teachers and choreographers and master teachers themselves now.
And I bet
that you've probably taken from.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can only imagine the people within that community as well that could probably say the same thing about you. Whether it was something you said or helped them with, or I know there's people out there still saying, Tony Coppola used to say this.
Well, because the things my teacher said, it still rings in my head.
Yeah. You ring in my head all the time.
Uh-oh.
Whenever someone says something about like getting out of their comfort zone, I'm like, my tap teacher says.
Did I keep it clean?
My tap teacher says,
oops.
The most dangerous thing you can be is comfortable.
Right. So.
But anyway, I think that is all the questions I have for you, Tony. I thank you so much for sharing your time and your stories and your wisdom with us. People can follow you on Instagram, and I will have those linked and spelled out perfectly in the description box. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
Take heart. You're always going to have stuff to deal with, not just in dance, but in society, in our country and stuff. And sometimes it gets frustrating and stuff, but you say, what can I do in my little corner of the world? How can I make that part of it better in my corner of the world? And run with that and learn to love seeing the results of that.
I love that. I think such a good mindset to have. Also, what you said very early on in the podcast is, what can I do differently than everybody else?
Yes. What's my contribution? There you go.
Amen.
Thank you, Abbie.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Before the Curtain. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever it is you listen to the podcast. We love to hear your virtual round of applause. If you know of a production or artist that deserves to have their story told, send us an email or message us on Instagram by clicking the link in the description.